This is Terry Heafield, who's an operations officer for the CFA. So thank you so much for coming to join us today, Terry. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Now you're here to talk to us about mental health in the services. I know that there's been, I think that you have your own personal story along here as well, but certainly it's something that we, the community, need to be talking about a little bit more. So tell us a little bit maybe about your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Look, it's my story goes back a few years now, and basically I was at a stage where a time in my life which wasn't a great period of time. I was suicidal. I wasn't enjoying life. I wasn't enjoying work. There was nothing I could do that would make me happy. You know, I have very high expectations of myself, and having those high expectations was putting so much pressure on as well, because I wasn't able to meet those expectations at certain times. So yeah, it got to a state where I was suicidal. I then got some help, but ended up getting hospitalised too as an involuntary patient, which was a bit different. But I spent sort of a little bit of time in hospital, and then come out and spent 6 months off work.
So tell us a little bit about that then. What happened to you? Like, was there a particular trigger? Do you think it was a build up over lots of time? And then tell us a little bit about the signs and symptoms that you had during that time that led you to feeling suicidal, I guess.
Yeah, look, a lot of mine was a cumulative. I used to live in down past Geelong on the Ballarat Peninsula, and I was really anxious around people. I didn't like being with people. I didn't like myself, and I tried to run away, I guess. So when I moved to Wodonga in 2007, I actually didn't even tell my wife that I'd actually applied for the job. I'd went and had the interview, come back, got offered the job, and then thought, well, I'm moving.
So surprise!
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
It's only the other side of the state,
yeah.
So it wasn't.
Why not?
Why not? Give it a go.
Yeah,
What's the worst that could happen? Well, that's what I thought at the time.
Yeah.
Then I sort of got to a stage where my anxiety was really high, and I couldn't actually associate and talk to people. If I heard a car door near the house, I'd look out the window, and if it was for me, I'd turn off the tally and go and hide outside or hide in the bedroom so no one thought I was home.
Was this a new thing at that point in time, or has this been throughout your life? Do you know? Was it from childhood?
To that extreme was new. I'd always been sort of anxious and never got in trouble at school, and was always, did
the right things.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Always nervous about what happens if someone found out this, or what happens if that. So again, and putting that pressure on myself too was always a bit difficult.
But at this point in time, what you're saying is that it was really extreme, and that you would even hide if you heard a car because you thought, someone might come and see me and I don't want to be social. Is that what it was?
Absolutely, yeah. And I hid myself away.
Were you married at this time? Because I know you're married with kids, yeah.
Yeah, so I was married with the 2 kids. I used to hide a lot of stuff because working the shift work, you're often home by yourself. So it was very easy to sit on the couch. And my life was sit on the couch, go to the fridge, come back, sit on the couch, go to the cupboard, come back, sit on the couch. But then when the kids and my wife come home from work, it was different me. I was putting up a front. Yeah. Even when I was actually at work, I would hate going to work, and so I'd get to work and I'd put a different face on. So no one even knew at work. I was hiding it all from people as well. It's
exhausting, isn't it? It's exhausting when you feel like you can't be yourself. You have to be this other person. What you said is that you're a perfectionist, and you had to have this brave front with your family, with your work colleagues, and you were good at your job, I presume, but inside you were feeling really anxious and having a difficult time.
Yeah, I was actually eating away at myself inside. I guess a lot of it is a bit stereotypical. How can a fireman have an issue with mental health? We're meant to be tough and strong and all that sort of stuff. So showing a sign of weakness wasn't part of me.
Yeah, it's not an option. You don't do that.
Yeah, and even with the sport that I used to play and those sort of things, it was just you just harden up and you get on with it. That was the approach that I was taking.
And it was often the message, I think, over years and years. We've had that message so many times: is just harden up and what is it? Drink a cup of concrete.
Exactly.
Or all those phrases that they have.
Yeah.
But for you, what you're saying is that that's what you were trying to do. And we know that the statistics are showing us that often the people that die of heart attack or stroke or have high cholesterol. There's lots of new research talking about that. Is often those people that are not expressing their feelings, they're not expressing their emotions and trying to have this hard exterior. But what we know, as you said, and that's a great description, it was eating you up inside.
Yeah. So I was really struggling in Wodonga, and I wasn't doing too well at work. I was still, I just hated being there, I hated doing everything. And so I took a position at Wangaratta, which is 45 minutes down the highway, which was a good change. However, it actually still posed a real issue for me because my family was in Wodonga and I was driving 45 minutes to work every day thinking, why am I doing this? Why do I have to change my life for something different that I should be able to deal with? I used to cry all the way to work. And I used to cry all the way home from work. But as soon as I pulled up in the car park or pulled up at home, face on. Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
And as we were saying before, that's exhausting when you have that face, trying to be brave, trying to be someone that you're not feeling inside. You're feeling really vulnerable and, well, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, well, how were you feeling inside?
Yeah, look, I hated me. That was probably the big thing. I used to self-harm a little bit, but even though my wife didn't know, I would go to bed early so that I could, self-harm before she actually came to bed, and do those sort of things. So I just hated just being me. I just didn't want it anymore. I just had enough.
And that's why these conversations are great, and I appreciate you coming to talk about it, because we need to make sure that everyone understands that it's part of life. A lot of people have these issues, and particularly in the services, you see a lot of things that most of us can't even imagine. And so of course the logical side is that you guys will need to have some opportunity or some method of debriefing and getting things out. And what you've said, well, what I know actually in the services is that there are lots of opportunities for that. But I think, as you've said also in a way, that perhaps there's lots of you that are putting on your uniforms and being these great tough people who recognise that, maybe that's not the thing I need to do. Yeah,
exactly. I had a firefighter, which I really think is a brave move. I was on a senior station officer at the time and we were going into a 3-car car accident, and the firefighter just off the recruit course said, I don't know how I'm going to go with this. And I thought, how brave is that? I thought that's really, really good that someone can stand up and say that on the way to a call like that. I thought it was excellent.
And did he go to the accident?
Yeah, we were in the back of the truck at the time. Okay. Yeah.
But he expressed it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so then that way we could change our tactics depending on how he was going. Yeah. And I think that was a really good thing.
And that's the thing, isn't it, in your field, that you can actually support each other as long as each of you are expressing or showing some way of what you're feeling. After the break...
I didn't eat, I didn't communicate with anyone. The only time I got out of bed was to go to the toilet, and the ensuite was only next door.
Now you mentioned back, and I hope this is okay to talk about it, and stop me if it isn't, but you mentioned that you were an involuntary patient at a hospital. Yeah. Did your wife see something, or are you happy to talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What happened is I was actually playing soccer on a Sunday morning, and I got given a yellow card, which is not a big deal, but you know, a yellow card's a bit of a, you know, don't do that again sort of thing. And that was my tipping point. My cup was full. I actually walked off the ground crying, sat behind a tree and didn't come back for the rest of the game. When the team come and got me afterwards, I went home and I spent the next 3 days in bed. I didn't eat, I didn't communicate with anyone. The only time I got out of bed was to go to the toilet, and the ensuite was only next door. So it wasn't too far. Yeah, so my wife actually intervened, obviously, and she rang the psychiatrist, and we went and saw him, and he said, well, we're going to put you into care. And I said, no, you're not. It was...
Men don't do that, I guess,
exactly.
was it?
Yeah, again, it's another... No, I don't. Look at my armour. I'm pretty, you know, yeah. But so I ended up having to get put in as an involuntary patient for a little while.
And was that helpful for you, do you think, when you were in there? Is that when they started medication? Did you?
No, I was already on the medication. They did change the medication while I was in there. They did put me on some night medication to help me sleep. Because I wasn't sleeping, that was probably another thing. But look, it did. I was in there for a little bit, and then they gave me, I'll say, weekend release, and they got a bout of gastro through the hospital. And they obviously rang my wife and the psychiatrist and worked out that they didn't need me to come back. Obviously, they thought I had enough of the shits to not go back and get some more. But
I'm with you. Got it.
Got it. So yeah. So no, it was something I look back at now and say it had to happen. Yeah. You know, it was at that crisis point where I'd worked out multiple ways of finishing my life.
So you had plans?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and times and all that sort of thing. So I think it was good timing.
You know how difficult it is for them to deal with things, but to have someone share their story or lend a helping hand or whatever it is that you do, that does make a difference. And the thing is, honestly, Terry, you'll never really know, or you may never know, how many people that you've helped. But undoubtedly, as a clinical psychologist, I can tell you that just talking about it, just giving your story and seeing someone, you know, a big tough guy like you in a uniform who has actually experienced these things is more important than anything that I could possibly say or do. And that's why I'm really grateful to you for coming here and having this conversation, you know, on camera about what's gone on for you, because you're a real person with, with real needs, real situation, and someone watching here even might just say, oh wow, look, if he can go through it and survive and move on and have a wonderful life afterwards with ups and downs. And I loved that you said that too, because no one has a perfect life. That's just not even possible. But you certainly have expressed that, you've talked about it, and it's, you know, life's a journey, and as you said, there will be the ups and downs, but here you are and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah. Yeah, look, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I really appreciate it, so thanks, Terry. All right, today I'm going to introduce Travis Harris. He is an operations officer from Shepparton for the Country Fire Authority, and he's here to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. So thank you very much for coming, Travis. I really appreciate it. It's a long drive out here to the Docklands, so thank you for doing that. Now, how long have you been in the service for?
So I've been involved in the CFA professionally for 12 years and in a volunteer capacity and career for 18 years now. So
okay. Oh my gosh, that is a long time. So you went in as a teenager by the sounds of things? Yes, yeah. And so you've been working out in the country? Have you always been in the country, or?
Yeah, most of my career I've spent in rural locations.
Yeah. So you've been working for a long time in the field. So tell me a little bit about your job. What does it involve?
Yeah, certainly. Well, up until recently I've been on the fire station, so responding on fire trucks and actually going to fire calls, everyday emergencies, and helping out the community. And just recently I've taken a slightly different role, and I now work in headquarters in more of a management position. Yeah, and
tell us a little bit about that, because I guess that's really what we're here to talk about today, is the reason for your change of career at this point in time, within the CFA still, but the change of career. Tell us a little bit about why that's happened.
Yeah, certainly. So just over 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was at a really low point in my life, really struggling with every aspect of life, I suppose. And I took the opportunity which presented itself to sort of take a slightly different path within the organisation to help manage and cope with that, which has actually worked out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Because I know that what you want to talk about here today is post-traumatic stress disorder, but also mental health within the services. Tell us a little bit about that. What's happening there, do you know?
Certainly. I think mental health is still, unfortunately, a topic that people just don't want to talk about. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to talk about it. Don't want to sort of even acknowledge that it's there in some aspects, which is wrong because it's quite normal. It's no different to me to somebody having an injury like a broken arm. It's just an injury that can easily be worked through and fixed and continue on quite well, or quite normally without any effects at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because I often refer to it as being similar to diabetes or anything like that because it's around, it's there, it's not a sign of weakness or any of those things that sometimes that some people have this misconception about, I think. So I'm really glad that there's people like you to talk about it. I believe within the services that there's higher rates of probably depression, PTSD and suicide, is that correct?
It is, yes, and I believe that's because in the emergency service, I think people expect us to be tough and bulletproof and nothing will affect us, and we're just normal people doing a job that unfortunately exposes us to some of the worst situations that you can possibly come across. And a lot of those situations aren't what you would normally see, and you do need to process those, and depending on the situations you are exposed to, sometimes I believe you don't maybe get the time or the support that you need to process those properly, and can potentially put you under extra stress and pressure.
Well, we certainly know here in Australia there's lots of times, particularly this time of year, I guess, and into the next few months, like into January, February, March, where there's lots of fires out in the rural areas, and so you guys would be called in all the time to be facing those. And especially when the big fires happen, I imagine that the hours that you would work and the ability to debrief afterwards would be limited at those times. Is that right?
Yeah, it can be, definitely, and that's one of the things, obviously a fire is a great example. You see people at their most vulnerable and their most emotional, and they've experienced potentially significant loss, and trying to process that and work through that, especially in summer when there's relentless weather that doesn't let us have a proper break, and process that information can be quite difficult.
Now, is it really cohesive within the services, and that's what I'm imagining, that there is a lot of opportunity for you all to talk to each other about issues and how you're feeling, or is that not really something that's done between you? I know that you probably have access to...
We do. We have really, this is the strange thing, I suppose, we have really good support services, and as an organisation, especially the Country Fire Authority, there's some really good services available. It's people just not willing to use them, and I've been in that boat. As I said, I think you feel that maybe it's a sign of weakness, or you need to be a bit tougher than you are, because if someone finds out, they might think less of you. And it's certainly not the case at all. Having been through this and since talked to people and openly talking to people, and people are more than happy to talk to you and provide you with that support. It's just a matter of asking for it, and no one thinks any less of you at all.
So tell us, at what point did you decide to access services? Like, did your wife tell you to go? Was there some other thing? What was going on for you at the time?
Yeah, my wife did. So I suppose 12 months before I was actually diagnosed, I knew that I was in trouble. I did reach out for help, and I did see somebody. I only had one visit. It just didn't work. I didn't click with the person. I thought it was a waste of time. So therefore I gave up, probably added more to my depression because I sort of thought, well, I've tried to do the right thing, didn't work, I'll give up because it didn't work. And then very quickly, over the next 12 months, it spiralled quite quickly out of control, to the point where I actually broke right down to the point where I thought there was no other option other than to look to take my own life. And my wife realised I sort of broke down and was uncontrollably crying at that point, and getting up to leave home, and she sort of grabbed me and held me, wouldn't let me go, and from that point she actually sent me a text message the next day. Actually, I sort of calmed down a little bit, which was a really good online quiz, actually, a mental health quiz, and at the end of that it said you need to immediately see your doctor, which I did, and from that point on, it's just been up and up. So, yes.
So did you tell her that day that you were considering taking your own life?
I didn't actually say the words, but she certainly
But
knew,
she knew.
that was the point where I was at. I'd sort of broken right down and told her that there was no, sort of I felt like I had nothing left and nothing to give.
So in those previous 12 months, tell me what was going, because you said that you were not coping. Tell us what was going on for you, just so anyone that's listening and watching right now might actually see some of the signs that you experienced and might hopefully take that opportunity to go and seek some assistance.
Certainly. So to me, I felt like I had nothing left in my life at all. So at work, I didn't enjoy work. I dreaded going to work. I had my hobbies. I hated all of my hobbies that I had. I didn't enjoy doing. And my family, I didn't enjoy spending time with my family. I was always angry. I was always negative, yelling. Very unpleasant person to be around. I drank a lot, and just I suppose there was no sense of enjoyment. Everything was getting on top of me financially, personal life, just extremely overwhelmed, didn't know where to sort of head. Everything I tried didn't help. I just lost all motivation to do anything, I suppose.
And what about sleep? Was that another issue?
Couldn't sleep unless I'd been drinking, which obviously was an alarming sign. When I did sleep, it was very broken sleep, and it would take a very long time to sleep because I'd be constantly thinking about all of the things that I had going through my head and stressing about those. So it wasn't a good sleep at all.
So what prompted you the first time to go and get help? Because you said that you got help first and then a year later. I knew it. I could see the warning signs. I knew that I wasn't coping. It was coming up to the anniversary of Black Saturday, actually. I think it was the 5-year anniversary. And I'd had a little bit of a panic attack, and I knew that wasn't a good thing, and realised that I needed to get some help. Lots of other things still going on in my life that were contributing stress and anxiety. And I thought I'd better reach out, and as I said, unfortunately, probably the best advice I learned from that was that seeing one person, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the right person for you, because consequently the second person I went and saw, we connected straight away, and she was amazing. We had instant rapport on the first visit, and very quickly we started to work through issues, and it was just unbelievable. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I learned was, if the first person you see doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work at all. It might take 2, 3 or 4 people before you find that right person that works for you. I love that message actually, Travis, because that is the thing. Sometimes some people do go and get that first appointment and then realise that it's not going to work, didn't like the person, they didn't listen to me, or whatever the issue is. I didn't get along with them. And it's not a personal thing. It doesn't mean that the psychologist or counsellor, whoever it was, there's anything wrong with them. It's just that we all have people that we get along with and like. And I'm really pleased that you have just delivered that message to lots of people, that it is important. If you don't find that right person straight away, there is a right person out there for you that will help and guide you through this whole process. So well done. Coming up.
Never received a negative comment from anybody about what I've done or what I'm currently doing.
Tell us a little bit about a really good story. Do you have any good stories about people that you might have helped or conditions that you might have dealt with? That we can all imagine the bad ones, but are there any that have really sat with you that make you feel good over these years?
Oh, definitely. There's lots of good things, as we said. We do see some bad stuff, but to offset that, we get some really good things, and it can be little things where we help people out of a tricky situation. That they're obviously, when someone calls the fire brigade, they need help for whatever reason. Doesn't always have to be bad. It might be getting, and it's a classic one. You say, get the cat out of the tree. It's quite a funny one because I've never seen a dead cat in a tree before, so they always manage to find their own way down. But if a child's upset and it's their pet, we're more than happy to go along and help out and get the cat down out of the tree. That always, is quite a funny story when we get back to the station, is we rescued the cat out of the tree.
And finally, I guess, Travis, I really sincerely want to thank you for coming here and talking about this, because I think in years past it would have been a very difficult topic to talk about. Sometimes people worry about how people are going to judge them, what they're going to think about them. But I'm really proud to have people like you in the services who will talk about it, who acknowledge that it's not a sign of weakness, it is a sickness, it's something that is easily treated, easily helped, as long as you go out there and search for, or at least find the appropriate person to help you or people to help you. I think we need to talk more about it. I think that we need to action a lot more services out there and enable people like you to do what you do to help save lives. You help save our lives, and giving you the opportunity to seek assistance saved yours too.
Oh, 100%. And every single person I've ever spoken to about my situation, what I've been through, has been 100% positive. I've never received a negative comment from anybody about what I've done or what I'm currently doing to try and raise awareness for it. And I think that's the most important thing. Somebody is always listening and always available to talk. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night, and they will not think any less of you. They will be more than happy to talk to you. I can assure you of that from my own experiences, and I think that's probably something for me is, as I said, not one negative feedback from anybody I've ever spoken to about it. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Travis. I really appreciate it. As I said, I think it's really, you're brave in your job that you've done and are continuing to do, and you're brave really to talk to us about what's been going on for you. And thank you for trying to publicise and talk a lot more about mental health issues. I really appreciate it.
No
thank
worries,
you.
Thank you.